So I want to teach you a song that just came down about a week ago in New York, and I've been singing it all week. It has to do very much with Purim, with Rosh Hashanah, with Yom Kippur. The truth is, I'm kind of scared to start singing it because it's still very much in here. And the second you put out a song and it's not private anymore with between you and Hashem, it's a very vulnerable situation to be in. You put it out there, and then now it's just like, okay, whoever wants to hear this and take whatever they want to take from it is open to. But I hope that that intimacy and that private place and that special place of just feeling very much in touch with this nigun should last forever, B'ezrat Hashem. The words are from Megillat Esther that we just read. Uvechein avo el hamelech. Well, I will come before the king. Uvechein avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech. 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 Uvechein avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech. Uvechein avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech. Uvechein avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech. Uvechein avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech. Uvechein la 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 Avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech. Uvechein avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech. All right, welcome everyone. Hoping you're hearing all right. And that went through. This tkufa, this period that we're in right now, is a period that personally I feel has certain potential that really doesn't exist for the rest of the year. When you come out of the mikveh of Purim, where are you going to go? How are you going to look at the world the same? You can't look at the world the same anymore. It just can't be. Because there's different eyes. It's a different level of a heart. On a level of just renewal, there's so much now that exists in the heart after going through the 4 mitzvahs of Purim, which are reading the Megillah, giving tzedakah, shalach manas, and obviously going to that place during the Seudah, which I'm so thankful we had the most incredible Seudah yesterday in our home. But the question is, where do I go from here? And I have one direction, and that's the Seder table. That's Pesach. That's the liberation, which now I'm starting to have a little bit more of a sense of having vessels for it. So first of all, tonight, I want the learning to be in memory of a very dear friend's 30th days since his passing, and that is Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchak ben Reb Moshe, that he should continue to soar so high, knocking on heaven's door and bringing down so much light, which has already been done in his name since he passed on. And I also want to do this for the refuah shlema of a dear friend of ours, Rivka Rachel Bat Tova, needs a very serious refuah shlema, as well as Natan Daniel ben Malka should have a refuah shlema. So when you come out of this mikvah from Purim and you're going to Pesach, what are you going to grab onto? You're going to grab onto the parasha. You're going to grab on to the portion, because like the Alter Rebbe always says, a Jew lives with the times, and our times, if not necessarily right now, March 2017, that's not the times we're speaking about. What we're talking about is the Parsha. And there's a Parsha that I'm sure you all agree with me. It's a Parsha, personally, I tremble, I shiver before. This Parsha that we have this week, Parshat Tisa, literally to tremble before it. Every year, no matter how many times you've read this one, learning about the golden calf, which takes up, really the main chunk of our parsha, you can't just read through it. Something happens to a Jew when he learns about the fact that we created a golden calf while we miscalculated Moshe Rabbeinu's descent down back to us after the mountain. And I tremble before this parsha because I always wonder every single year, where is this still in my heart? What's going on in me that still needs very strong refinement when it comes to the concept of the golden calves that I've built for myself? Now, that's all very nice language, it's a nice lashon, but what does that really mean? Let's be real. What does that tachlis, what does that concept actually mean? Where you say, I might have a golden calf as well inside of me. I don't know, I don't have any desires to build calves and worship them. But there is something that Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach's brilliant, masterful piece on Parshat Tisa will bring us, dafka tonight, to a place that I think each of us could say, yeah, this is a little bit my issue. This is a little bit what I'm still struggling with as well. So that we can find a very strong and powerful personal connection to that which we're going to be learning this Shabbos. So what I'm going to be doing right now is that in the first, I haven't even checked if there are comments here on this video, but what I will be doing is I'll be posting the text that we're going to be learning from in a comment. And I hope this works. I think it does. Yeah, so it should be right in front of you. So I want to go right into it, and the sheer title, like we mentioned before, is a very heavy title. It's a title that will definitely provoke, but that's okay. We're post-Purim, we can handle certain heavy things. But I want to just go right into it, and it's a piece that we've learned together with the Chevra in Efrat or in Yerushalayim over the years, And every year, the way we learn it, it brings out a different side of us that says, I connect to it more like this. So we're going to go right into it, and the text should be right before you. Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, talking about the golden calf. I want you to know the depths of life. The golden calf was not so simple. Not that I'm telling you stories to justify it. I'm just telling you what happened. So let's understand that for a second. Usually, generally speaking, when we learn about the golden calf, we think there were a ton of really bad people amongst the people of Israel, and they just needed to be wiped out because of the horrible thing that they did. I'm kind of reminded by the statement of the Kotzker Rebbe when he discussed the sin of Adam, which when we hear about Adam sinning from a tree, from eating from the wrong tree, we also get very disgusted and think of him as a very low individual that could have done such a thing at such a moment. But the Kotzker Rebbe said, I wish, what did he say? I wish I could daven and shake before God on Yom Kippur on the same way that Adam Arishon, that man, first man, ate that fruit from the wrong tree. Meaning, perspectively speaking, we don't really understand that the people that built this golden calf and worshipped it, who were they led by? Who instructed them to bring whatever they brought to construct this golden calf? Someone that we don't think lowly of, someone we feel and think very, very highly of, and his name is, you have many Jewish children being named after him for many, many, many years. Aaron, Moshe Rabbeinu's brother. He's the one that actually constructs this golden calf. So Rabbi Shlomo starts off by saying, let's just realize something. It's not so simple. It's not that a bunch of bad people did something bad. Next day Moshe Rabbeinu comes down and he says, who's with me? We got to go kill 3,000 people. It doesn't work like that. It's much deeper than that. So he goes and continues like this. Before Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Mount Sinai, he told the Jewish people, I'll be back on the 40th day. And everyone knows we get confused with the timing. We didn't know if it's exactly 40 days besides this day of the giving of the Torah, or is this day of the giving of the Torah actually included amongst the 40th day? What we noticed as well, when it comes to miscalculations, we messed up also when it comes to the story of Purim, is that we had a miscalculation in regards to when the 70 years were over. Because the story of Purim takes place between the destruction of the two temples. So we always wondered, we knew that it was going to be a 70-year period, but we miscalculated those years as well, which then led us to be going into a really horrible place, allowing us to then feast with Achashverosh and who knows what else we were doing. But it's incredible how miscalculations have led us to such low places in life. And when I say miscalculations, I also mean, certain things in our life that we always say, things should have happened by now. We live with this emunah, it's a weird emunah, where we say, well, I believe things should have happened by now. I should have gotten it by now. I expected of myself to conquer a certain something by now. When really, that's a form of idol worshipping. It's my cheshbon, it's my calculation. I decide. Or I mess up a calculation, so I say, well, if it didn't work out based on numbers, it means that something's wrong. Just think for a second about how many people have been predicting the coming of the Mashiach, and how many people's predictions have been wrong. So what are you going to do? You're going to stop believing? So very good, thank you, Shimon. Correct. Miscalculations is an expectation, whether we like it or not. So look what he says here. Now listen to this, third paragraph. The first day the Brooklyn Bridge was built, thousands of people wanted to see the bridge. So everyone started going onto it. And suddenly one person starts yelling that the bridge is caving in. But what happened was only one person had yelled. And suddenly people started jumping off the bridge. It's a true story. You can look this up. I looked it up on Wikipedia afterwards. This is what happened when Brooklyn Bridge was made. So one person yelled and people started jumping off the bridge. 12 people were killed and many were injured, and it was all because one person started yelling. So you see what it is. Everyone was waiting for Moshe Rabbeinu to come down and keep his promise, and he wasn't coming down. One person got up and said he'll never come back because he went up to heaven, and that's that. And it was all based on one person's expectation, based on a miscalculation, which then caused such an uproar, which caused something that you and I are still struggling with today. Rabbi Shlomo says you have to realize when we're talking about this story of the parsha, and specifically this parsha which dealing with the golden calf, you have to realize that a lot of people came with us out from Egypt who weren't part of our nation. We refer to them as the Erev Rav. How did that happen? That people joined us? So he says something. So the way he explains Chazal is really beautiful. He says over here, when Moshe Rabbeinu proclaimed freedom to the world, any slave in Egypt who had a sense that they wanted to be free, they walked out with us. But they weren't really ready for it yet. They might have not wanted to be a slave, but listen to this line, not wanting to be a slave doesn't mean you're ready for freedom. It takes a lot more than that. It's such a beautiful line. Not wanting to be a slave doesn't mean that you're ready for freedom. It takes a lot more than that. Once they saw Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't coming down, these people started saying, we have different ways. And if this doesn't work, we'll just go back to our idols. And a lot of these people were the perpetrators. They were the ones, the propagandists. They were the ones that really pushed this desire to have a golden calf. But back to the question at hand for our class tonight. And the following question is something I'm guaranteeing that each of us has asked this definitely subconsciously, but probably consciously as well. The question is, why did God test them like that? Why didn't God make the timing clear? Meaning if God is God and God is God, and he knew that based on a miscalculation, it would lead them to such a low place, then couldn't have God tested them differently? Because obviously a test like this will lead to a tremendous lack of emunah and bitachon, of faith and trust. So why couldn't God have tested Am Yisrael in a different manner? Why did it have to be through this? Now, again, like I said before, I know in my life I've also asked God. Remember, there's two specific things where I asked God. I've asked many times over the years the same things. I said, I don't, I accept almost everything that's gone on, but there's this one thing that I have no idea why I need to be tested like this. What good can come out of this? How much can we become closer from such a test this way? In my personal case, it's not about a miscalculation, but it's the same flavor of it. It's the same sense of why did the test have to be like this? And I guess that part of real, what we call bitul, which means self-annihilation, which means emptying your own ego from the picture, really means that any test that comes your way, that there's no room for that question. You can voice it, you're human. God wants to hear what's happening in your heart, even though he already knows. He wants you to hear what's happening in your heart. But I guess that a certain level of real emunah, of real trust, is when I remove myself from wondering how I can calculate this test as well. Why did this test have to happen to me? Why not a different type of test? But here Rabbi Shlomo says, I want to share with you the deepest depths. And this next paragraph is epic. I don't have any other wording for it. Do we believe in God because it works? Are we believers because someone who is a representative of God is keeping his promise? If this is where I'm at, I'm not on the road yet. With all due holiness and respect to Moshe Rabbeinu, is my link to God as a human being off once I see that Moshe Rabbeinu, is not coming down from the mountain? You see what it is, Rabbi Shlomo says? Whoever says their religion works is simply involved in pagan worship. A religion that works is paganism. It means that I'm utilizing God in my religion to do something with it. Now he continues and he says, our religion doesn't work. He's talking about Judaism, obviously. Our religion doesn't work. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Now this paragraph and these statements will probably shock the core of almost anyone who's willing to admit to the fact that so much of the core principles of that which keeps them in line with observance of halacha, of the law, of the Jewish tradition, is because they feel that there's this kind of network, which means that if I do my role, then the trip works, then religion works. And here he's saying over here, our religion doesn't work. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So when he says maybe it does or maybe it doesn't, what is he saying? He's saying it could be that it does or it could be that it doesn't. Who cares? That's not the point. I actually think that that's really, when you get to that place of Ad Lo Yada on Purim, you really understand this in a much deeper Ad Lo Yada way. Because you realize that whether it works or not is not what's going to make me feel close. That doesn't make me feel close. So what does make me feel close? If it's not a matter of seeing that things work for me in my life. You know how many friends of mine that I had a very, very close friend. I have a very, very close friend. And Hashem should bless him with all the good in the world. He gave so much tzedakah. He gave me, I didn't need tzedakah, but the stuff that he did for me was just tremendous. 1 year, he mamish really, really took a turn financially in a really bad way. And when he was going over his finances with the accountant the following year, and they were trying to see what happened over here, they noticed that he didn't give 10% of his income to charity like we're supposed to. I'll never forget this number for the rest of my life, and this happened nearly 20 years ago. He gave 52% of his income to tzedakah, to charities. I saw this firsthand many times with different people, different institutions, different publications. So what's going on here? It's supposed to work. The Torah even says, do this and this will happen. So because it doesn't work, what does that say? Now in our lives, we have that. It plays such a role in our life, much more than we really are willing to admit, because it's so embarrassing when we realize what kind of a game we've made with God, with religion. Rabbi Shlomo continues and says, my worship doesn't depend on whether it works or not. My serving God has nothing to do with whether I'm going to hell or heaven. Well, that's also a chiddush, because most of us are really serving God because we really hope we're going to heaven. But here he says, my serving God has nothing to do with whether I'm going to hell or heaven. If I would hear a voice from heaven that all pagans are going to heaven and all Jews are going to hell, I would still be a Jew, he says. That's such a, what a Rebbe, what an amazing, what a holy chutzpah he has. Ultimately, Rabbi Shlomo says, the golden calf was all about me needing something that works. And if I need something of God that works, then God becomes the golden calf. But don't kid yourself, friends. This doesn't last. He said, just to internalize these words once again, if I need something of God that works, then God becomes the golden calf. Meaning, in my life, it's true, I don't erect golden calves, egel azav, and feel like this is my worshiping. But what I do is that I make God into a golden calf. All the time. If I'm good over here, then it should work, that these things should happen as well. So as much as maybe I say I'm so far from Avodah Zarah, the way that they used to have pagan worship, it's not true. How many times do I really ask myself, Shlomo, are you sure this whole trip is working? Because it doesn't seem like it's getting any easier. And as far as you know, you are trying harder and helping more, or whatever it is. But Rabbi Shlomo is saying, when you start thinking like that, you've made God into a golden calf. And that's how it shows you how the Torah is so eternal. And every word, every parsha is still speaking volumes and volumes and volumes to us. So he continues and he says like this, and here I want you to open your hearts. That's the paragraph that begins like that. And here I want you to open your hearts. When I pray to Hashem and God answers, there's a little sense of pagan worship there. Why? Because that's like, it worked, right? The test is, if you pray to God and he doesn't answer, then what happens to you? When did Moshe Rabbeinu teach us about prayer? This is amazing. Moshe, the teacher of Am Yisrael, who instilled within Am Yisrael the power that thousands of years later, you and I I'm sitting here in Efrat. You're sitting in Brooklyn, Florida, Muncie, Los Angeles, Europe, wherever you are, and wherever you're gonna be when we learn together. We're still trying to really understand the depth of the teachings of Moshe Rabbeinu, of our teacher Moshe. And here Rabbi Shlomo says, when does Moshe Rabbeinu teach us about davening, about prayer? Moshe Rabbeinu prayed to God so many times to go into the Holy Land. It was one of the most powerful prayers man has ever prayed. And what happens? This is Parshat Beit Hanan. God says no. So the question is, why in the world would Moshe have told Am Yisrael, if he wants to give them chizuk, koach, strength, why would he tell them, listen, I want you to know me, and you guys know that I'm like the leader. I wanted one thing. There's only one thing I ever asked God for personally. And God said no. And all the commentators are trying to understand, how on earth does Moshe give strength to Am Yisrael when he himself is the one that tells people of Israel, when I tried in daven, it didn't work. But that's the point. That gives more strength than anything, based on everything we learned from now. When Moshe Rabbeinu teaches Yidlach how to pray, he says, look at me. I was praying to enter the Holy Land, and God didn't answer. But even after God said that I won't go in, I still kept praying. And here is something I wanted to talk about. You know that we think that we need certain things, and we engage in prayer when it's never goes deeper than just asking for God for something specific. I feel let down. But when I start talking to God and the real me starts showing up and coming out, I hear myself, then you know what happens? I receive something that's so much greater than any answer to a prayer can ever provide for me. I meet myself. This is what all of Reb Nachman's Torah about davening is all about. That I thought I came to daven because I needed something. But really what the rhythm that takes place, that's formed while I start praying, shows me that you're made out of something else. You're incredible. You're so much deeper than you really understand. And then you look back at the thing that you thought you needed, you realize, well, if that happens, that's nice. But what I experience right now, about acknowledging that I'm in the presence of the Master of the world, no answer to any request could ever come close on the level of meaning to that which I've experienced and tasted right now. And I think, and I believe, that all of you know exactly what I just said, Chevra. And we can't really describe it too much in words. There is a word for it in Hebrew. It's called dvekut, which comes from the word devek, which means glue. You're clinging together. There's an attachment. It's like this. And that's what happens. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them, listen, I prayed for something specific. I wanted so badly to go inside. And why am I telling this to you? Because I just want you to know that I discovered the most incredible things about myself, about my relationship to God, through the art of prayer. And it was so much more important than whatever I thought I needed. So, you have to pray, Rabbi Shlomo says. If God doesn't answer, it's between God and God. Meaning, you praying, if Hashem says no, then that's not your cheshbon. It's not your trip. That's between God and God. It's almost like Hashem will have to give Hashem a judgment over such a thing, right? So to speak. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who teaches us that praying has nothing to do with being answered. The pagans of the world will always come and try to disprove the oneness of God by showing that it simply doesn't work. I don't know how many, and I don't encourage the following, but I'm not sure how many of you have had serious conversations with so-called atheists, and I say so-called because I once heard Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach say, if someone tells you that they don't believe in God, just don't believe them. Which I thought was pretty cool. That's a pretty cool statement. But you'll hear that they build their theories based on that it doesn't work. So I always say the same thing. I say, I want you to know, the God that you don't believe in, I promise you I don't believe in either. Because they're speaking about a God that works. Well, how could a Jew say that God works after 6 million were in the gas chambers? Even before the gas chambers. How could we ever say that our religion is based on something working or not? Look at us Jewish people. Are things working? We came back to the land of Israel after 2,000 years, And just this morning at 4 in the morning in the old city of Jerusalem, a terrorist infiltrated into a headquarters of the army in the old city and stabbed 2 soldiers and injured them. And they're in the hospital right now. So based on logic, or based on working or not, that means it doesn't work. There are moments where it doesn't work. But that's an Amalek way of understanding our relationship with God. That's a poisonous way. And in fact, I really do believe that as much as we think that we're believers, Western culture has really led us to believe that it really is a matter of something that works for you. And if it doesn't work for you, then there's something wrong with you. But why would you suffer? Why would you put suffering on yourself and enter a relationship that doesn't necessarily work? Well, that's because what we're interested in, what the Torah is interested in, is something so much deeper than calculations, expectations, and when things work. Because if things worked, and that was my relationship to God, I would probably never ever push myself. I would probably never ever encourage myself to go deeper, because I'd just be waiting for things to work or not to work. I would never ever ever find out who I am if things just worked. If I was like, just talk to Hashem and things worked, I would never push myself in prayer. I'd never get a taste of who I truly am right now, and that which I could become as well. So go back, friends, go back to all those moments in life that things didn't work, and what happened to you then. Now forget about what happened to you until now, and go into the Purim zone, from Purim to Pesach, because a free person is one who's not enslaved to a pagan worship of things having to work or not having to work. And this is where we're heading towards Pesach. The opening which took place in me on Purim while I was drunk, where I realized that my religion is not a religion that necessarily works. It's something so much deeper than that. I reached that same clarity, a place of absolute clarity, totally sober, Pesach night. I know we drink a little bit of wine. That's not the ikar of the night. That's not the avoda. That's not the work of the night. So Rabbi Shlomo ends off this beautiful piece by quoting 2 teachings from the Rishner Rebbe, from Rabbi Yisrael of Rizhin. These 2 teachings have played such a role in my life personally. I'll tell you, I felt them in such a strong way on so many different occasions, and I hope, and I'm so excited and thankful to share this with you as well. Look at the paragraph which begins, the Holy Rishner says something unbelievable. The Holy Rishner, the Rishner Rebbe's name was Rabbi Israel Friedman, and he was the great-grandson of the Maggid of Mezrich, Reb Dov Ber, who was the successor and top student of the Baal Shem Tov. The Rishner is the head of the Rishon dynasty, and there's a lot to say about him. It's not the time right now. But look what he says here. The Holy Rishner says that before Mashiach is coming, the whole world will be pagans. But there will still be some people who won't be worshiping idols. If he's not talking about right now, I don't know when he's talking about. Finally, the whole world will meet somewhere, and they'll bring fire down from heaven, meaning these pagans, but us Yedilach won't. Do you know why? Because the ultimate test is, are you worshiping God because it works, or are you really worshiping God because you know there is one God? This means that there is nothing in the world that could take away my belief in God. Like Rabbi Shlomo said before, if even a voice from heaven came down and said, Jews, you really did mess up. It's time for the new covenant. You really, even if it came from heaven, there's nothing, the Jew's connection, his hitkashrut. He's being tied in to the fact that he stands before God, and that the Torah is eternal, is so much stronger, no matter what, than whatever could be, until Mashiach comes. But he's saying, Reb Shlomo says, it's going to be a time where it's going to feel like you're the last person that's normal, that's sane. I was teaching a few weeks ago in the city Modi'in. We did a pre-Purim shir. I don't know, it was just like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't remember. And we were saying over there that one of the signs of Mashiach coming is when each person is going to think that they're the last person sane that's standing. I really feel like most people think they're the last people in the world that are normal. They love everybody. They might not love everybody, But most of us think that we're the last people in the world that are normal. This is what he's talking about. So, the Rishner says over here, to believe in, Rabbi Shlomo says in the name of the Rishner, to believe in God means that I don't see anything and I have nothing to hold on to. Nothing. Nothing works. Nothing. Even those things that seem to work, when I go into the depth of it and I realize even that I don't have. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, therefore, on Sukkot we say, Rabbi Shlomo says, Hoshana, Shalosh Shais, Hoshana, Hoshana, Shalosh Sha'ot, Hoshana. Please, God, help me for 3 hours. That's one of the Hoshana prayers, the Save Me, Salvation prayers, which we pray on the last day of Sukkot, when we surround the Bima with our lulav and etrog. So everyone's trying to understand, what are these 3 hours? So Rabbi Shlomo says that the Rishner says that everyone has to go through 3 hours. I don't know how long those 3 hours are, but this ultimate test, when even God doesn't work and everything is falling apart, seems to be what these 3 hours are all about. And the Rishner says that during those 3 hours, it'll be so hard to believe in God. It will literally be like walking up a wall. That's what it's going to feel like to believe in Hashem. How can you walk up a wall? There's nothing to hold on to. That's how hard it's going to be. And this was one of the last things the Rishner has said before he passed away. So someone asked the Rishner, why are you telling us all of this? So he said like this, I want you to tell your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, please tell them I said so. Tell them to please hold on to each other. Because Rabbi Shlomo says, what does that mean, to hold on to each other? So how do you walk up a wall? You have to stand one person on top of the other. You have to get together because you can't climb it alone. It's such a beautiful, beautiful way of ending this piece. That the only way that I can find a way that I could feel normal in a religion that doesn't work type of atmosphere is not alone. It's just, there's no way I could do it alone. And if it'll feel like walking up a wall, the only way you walk up a wall is one person on top of the other. I once heard, I think it was the name of Rabbi Natan of Breslov, that all we're doing today, in our job today of this last generation, which please God should be the last generation of any confusion about the oneness of God in the world, that everything we're doing now is to stand on the shoulders of the giants that stood before us. The Baal Shem Tov has wide, wide shoulders. The Chafetz Chaim has wide, wide shoulders, wide shoulders. The Lubavitcher Rebbe's shoulders keep on getting wider by the second. Even the Balei Musar as well. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the whole world of Slobodka, Mevardak, all that they provided for us as well. The Mamish had wide soldiers for us to stand on. And that's all that's left, because now it's a wall. Sorry for the pun. Not that wall. It feels like it's a wall. So please God, in the merit of learning this parsha of Tisa one more time, and understanding that the whole issue here was, who really cares about a religion that works or doesn't work? It is so much deeper than that. All of us, you and I together, should be privileged to experience the words of the song that we began with, and we'll sing it one more time. It's from Megillat Esther, Uvechein avo el hamelech. I will eventually show up before the king. Standing before the king, when you really realize you're standing before a king, you're not going to ask him, can you make this work or can you make that not work? All you tremble and do is, thank you, God, for experiencing this, and please wake me up and make me be aware of the holiness before I stand before you. Uvechein avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech, uvechein avo el hamelech, avo el hamelech, uvechein avo el hamelech, avo ובכן אבוא אל המלך, אבוא אל המלך ובכן. ויבוא אל המלך, אבוא אל המלך, אבוא אל המלך ובכן. אבוא אל המלך, אבוא אל המלך, אבוא אל המלך ובכן. דו 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 ובכן